Hello, I am your everyday average Jonathan. Join me this week because I take this and turn them into this. A very stylized Intarsia tree for my mother. Hello, I am your everyday average Jonathan. I'm an ordinary guy with ordinary tools making extraordinary items. It is mid-August here in Colorado, and actually it's interesting that it's also mid-August everywhere else too. But being that it's mid-August, it's one of those times of year around my mother's birthday that she comes to visit my family and I and spend some time with us. Like any good mother, she's a huge fan of the build projects that I do, of the YouTube channel that I have, and pretty much everything that I make, she says, "Ooh, will you make me one of those? Ooh, I want that too." And me being me, I resoundingly say no to all of those requests. Well, that said, it is her birthday, and she is also an artist. She's an amazing visual artist. She draws lots of charcoal pictures of animals, of people. She does portraits as gifts for people. And she came to me with an idea that she had for basically a conifer tree, an evergreen tree made from various pieces of wood. She saw a video that I did for my eldest daughter where I built a wind-blown tree for her, and she fell in love with that. And then she came and drew something out for me and said, "Could you make this?" Well, I'm a little bit skeptical. I'm a little bit dubious, probably only because the idea didn't start from me myself. But without further ado, she's gonna help me along the way. Let's get to the shop and get started. I find it very interesting and somewhat intimidating to try and create something that is coming from someone else's mind, someone else's vision of something, and get it right. It's not necessarily something that I shy away from, but it just takes everything a step back, especially though when you're creating something that is a bit abstract like this particular tree can be. Thankfully, that leaves a lot of room, I don't want to say for error, but for artist interpretation and taking it one direction or the other. Something more like a sword or a spear or an axe that has much more of a defined structure or shape or profile, that actually intimidates me just a little bit more. But being that this was going to be for my mother, it certainly wasn't something that I was going to let bother me too much, because like any mother, she just seems to really appreciate most of what I do. So this is my process for Intarsia. I don't know if this is the right way to do things. It probably is not. Taping these things onto a piece of wood and then cutting them out comes with its own set of peculiar hazards or problems, but by and large it works. Now, here's where the problems exist. The tolerances between these different pieces of wood are not at all tight. They are not at all exact. So I did need to do, as you see here, quite a bit of sanding between each individual piece. So the woods are Ironwood, which is the dark brown, tiger maple, which is going to be the purple wood that you see, and that is actually its true color, and then holly, which is that lighter wood. I just love holly because it's just such almost a pure white wood with a little bit of definition and striations. Now I'm just gluing it to this backing board once they're all cut out. I don't know a better way to do this. Just setting weights straight on it. I couldn't clamp these pieces. And then I'm going to take a little bit of time and go back to the scroll saw to cut them out. I did want to make a root ball, a root cluster system. I've done a lot of projects recently using this 1/4 inch iron rod or steel rod, and I just like the way all of them came out, and this was just one that just seemed to naturally want to have this sort of root cluster on the bottom. So I was already used to it, breaking open the torch here, going to make a couple curly cues, and away we go. As I mentioned, I've already made several of what I would call clusters like this with this 1/4 inch iron rod, so this was just old hat to me at this point. Now, I will tell you, the part that really for me was a pain in the booty was once this was glued up, the next day I came back in, I needed to basically remove all of the visual plywood that you see here, and it's very thin plywood. I think it's only 3/8 inch. But it did need to be removed so that all you see is the tree branches. I didn't want any backing to be visible, and that proved to be quite the undertaking. As you can see here, the scroll saw is the only way to do it, and it just took a lot of time. So if I was to do this again, which I think that I will, I'm not really certain a better way to do this. I don't want a wood backing on this particular type of item. I want the branches of the tree to be the only thing that you see. And as you can see here, I'm just going to make some epoxy, put it straight on the table. I use a center punch to stir it with. That's the way I roll. And for some reason, I misplaced my drills. So I had this Ryobi weird angled thing that I was doing it with. It's the only drill I had in the shop at the moment. I'm putting 2 small Phillips head screws in the back very gently so that I don't penetrate through. So that not only is this glued in, but it's got a little bit of mechanical bond as well. And then here's my daughter modeling it for me. Had to take it from her because I don't really trust those kids, to be quite honest with you. This is the final product. Put 2 coats of a lacquer on it, and I'm digging the way it turned out. This is what it looked like. It was numbered and everything before it was put together, and then final product. Of course, my mother had been gone for about a week before she came back and saw it, and she was very touched. So that touches me.
Well, thank you for joining me for that build. That build did not turn out the way that I thought it was going to turn out. It started with me thinking this build was going to be meh at best. And I gotta be honest, the end product I think is really, really cool. I'm recording this portion of the video before my mother has seen it. She's off on a trip to Southern Colorado. And I'm very sure that when she sees it, that she's going to be very, very happy with it and do the things that all doting mothers should do. All right, what did I learn from this straight in? There's really only one thing that I'm just scratching my head on, and that is this. I've never taken any sort of class or any sort of training or any tutorial on Intarsia. I've made a few things in the past and they all turn out about the same with lots of gaps and lots of holes, and it's not super precise. I have seen other artists examples of Intarsia where it doesn't have those things and it's actually tightly fitting. So here's the question, and someone out there is probably going to inform me the answer, and I welcome that, so thank you in advance. The question is this: when you are cutting out Intarsia pieces from different pieces of material, precisely, or more precisely, pieces of material that are different thicknesses, that ironwood was 1 inch thick, the tiger maple, the purple, it was 3/4 of an inch, and then the holly was about 1/2 inch. So how to get puzzle pieces cut out when its mirror image is a totally different material and a totally different thickness? I don't know the answer to that. If I do this again, which I'm sure at some point I'll probably do more Intarsia, I will do a little bit more research. I will ask around and I will find out. But that was a big hurdle. It took me a lot longer. And in the end, I don't really care for how I captured those pieces of Intarsia and glued them onto a backboard. Normally when I've done Intarsia, it's framed by a piece of backing wood that you cut a outline in and you inset those pieces of puzzle pieces into that wood, and it's captured and held that way and it's framed. This is the first time I didn't do it that way. That took me a lot more time to then cut out into those facets and grooves and indentations with my scroll saw. That just took a lot of time and I didn't really care for it. I don't think I did a very good job at it, frankly. So that too would be something that I change. At some point, I intend to make a complement of various different things: novelties, curios, trinkets, curiosities, weapons, armor, and then take them to a couple festivals to see if they actually could sell. This for sure will be something that I make several of and take with me. I really like the way it turned out. Thank you for joining me for this build. If you like builds like this that have whimsical value, fantastical value, recreation value, check out my channel for other builds where I build weapons and armor and other sorts of things that you've already heard me mention several times. That's it for this week. Join me next week. I'm going to build some sort of weapon or armor piece just to get me back into things that don't just sit on a wall and have maybe some sort of use or purpose to them that is functional and interesting to me. Until then, God bless. Have a great week.